Hello everybody. How's everybody doing? Kevin Chan here. Usual 7:30 in the morning session again today. And today we're gonna bring in the topic of talking about job lah. Time for money, right? So yesterday just went and watched the Jimmy Aoyang show, right? So you guys know Jimmy Aoyang, Hong Kong guy, in US right now in the comedy line, pretty successful, right? So yesterday while everybody was watching the show, I was calculating. Right, when somebody well star is a bit too high, that's what they do, right? So is there 5,000 people sitting, right? So I took the average mean that I took my ticket price, which is cheapest one, which is 300. 5,000, there's 1.5 million in the room, man. Hey, hello. And he only spoke for like 1 hour. That's 1.5 million per hour. Right, so yeah, right, so today we're going to talk about that, right? So today we'll talk about that, maybe we're going to be able to replicate that a bit, but before that, you need to have a bit of a concept of what is basically happening when it comes to the idea of earning. And one of the most common concept is, exchanging time for money, which is aka called your job, right? Your job is basically exchanging time for money. All right, so now let's say good morning to everybody first. I can see that Manuel Tan, prisoner number 5645. You guys should go and change your handle. Go into your YouTube profile. Under the general profile, there's a box called handle. You change that particular handle, or else you're gonna look like a prisoner. With Pepboy 9874, Sabrina 7907. Everybody, right? So like Stuart has already changed his, so that don't have any number at the back, right? So now I see that got Crimson Phoenix here. Gigi Lee is around. I don't know whether Gigi Lee work for Astro or stand for astrology. Winnie Leong is around, right? So yeah. Oops. Well, there's the numbers behind me because of your handle, right? So which means that there are somebody probably is using Crimson Phoenix as well. Right, so just to make sure that the computer doesn't have any repeats, so they throw in some number at the back, like random number at the back, right? So if you don't want any random number at the back, but anyway, the alias is gonna be there. YouTube decided to use the handle. Don't know why the alias is there, but anyway, all right, that doesn't matter, right? That one's small stuff, right? So come, let's go in and take a look at the entire idea of a job versus something else. Right, so this is the discussion that I had with a lot of people, because of why, because really the schooling system, right? So the schooling system is actually invented to fill up manufacturing plant, right? So the schooling system actually started, I think it's German or Russia, German. Right, so after the war, whereby the industrial revolution come in, they needed people who is smart enough to operate the machine, but not smart enough to think. So they come up with the entire schooling system to improve literacy, so that they'll be able to work in a factory environment. So the schooling system has not changed ever since then. Sad. Right, so up until today, we are still trying to manufacture factory worker. So that's the mentality of the schooling system, by the way, right? So nothing wrong with it, right? So it is done to serve a certain purpose. It's just that particular purpose not very relevant today, unless you are again in a country whereby manufacturing or the industrial way of doing things is how it goes, right? So then that may be, right? So because right now, no matter whatever you study, right, frankly speaking, you come out, ChatGPT is gonna basically outdo you. Right, that is not that study is not important, just that old way of studying is basically not really working well. So, and the concept of exchanging time for money is getting less relevant, right? Because exchanging time for money means that you'll be doing some repetitive work. AI will do better, right? It's time for you to make a bit of a change, right? So come, let's go through this particular exploration, right? So a bit of a discussion over here, right? So yeah, I know from time to time I'll bring in some concept. Right, so as usual, right, so no, just get in touch with me, come join me in my Telegram group, right? So it's a good place for you to get in touch with me. If you just want to read text, the newsletter is good, right? So the newsletter is good place for you to basically to read text. The forecast for the December month is going to come out on the 27th, if I'm not wrong. So it's going to be published here. Right, so some people, still asking, I'm gonna do some of the, forecasting, maybe yes, maybe no, I don't know. Let's see the situation, right? But definitely, all the forecast is gonna be published in the what we call the newsletter, right? So if you want the forecast, please go to the newsletter and take a look at it. And then there is the community channel, where all us enthusiasts come in together. So again, just tell you 1st of December, we will have a meetup. In the morning, we will go to one of the temple. To do a manifestation, right? So if you want to come over, I'll introduce you a bit on the temple. The landform is pretty nice, right? So I'll give you some explanation. So you guys, want to go, do come to the community channel, get in touch with Richard. Then after that, we will go to Richard's place to have lunch. Then we will have a bit of a discussion on achievement right after you guys has gone through the JY Tribe, right? So for those that will come to JY Tribe, or you fly in for JY Tribe, if you are willing to extend a little bit your stay, good for you, come and join us in the meetup. All right, so you want to have the detail, please go to the what we call your fan page, right? So come, let's take a look at this particular thing, right? So now a lot of time I talk to people, right? So talk to people, then this is one of the things that I usually make them think a bit, right? So if you see the Chinese word, that in studying Qimeng, right? So if you're studying Qimeng, your question has anything to do with employment, open door is the marker. You want to call it the marker. The targeting component is called open door. Investment is rest door, and the business is life door. So this general marker for you. So if you are asking about investment related thing, it's the rest door thingy, right? So and then if it's business related, it's life door. If it's employment related, then it's open door. Right, so this one is just general for you if you are doing a bit of a reading on this. How's my investment? You take a look at rest door. If your rest door condition is a piece of shit, then dead lah, right? So let me just explain this. A lot of people actually doesn't know how to do comparison one. Yeah. If you are doing comparison of anything, you need to lock one of the variable first. Right? So I'm a bit too maths trained. Yeah, I did a lot of maths. Okay, during my school time, it's like, don't know, it's like 50 maths question every single day type of training, right? So that's why maths pretty good. Right now, no good already. I tell you, right now, don't do. Okay, right? So you need to lock one mechanism. So now I'm talking about monthly income, right? So we just use monthly income as a locking mechanism. So it's easier for you to compare. Right, so you compare the rest of the thing. Right, so now employment game is very simple. I don't care which position you're in. Don't care what industry you're in, don't care what sort of job scope that you're basically doing. It is the most rudimental exchange of time for money, right? So the job market, the game plan is 9 to 5. That's the game plan, correct or not? So that is basically a factory setting, right? 9 o'clock, the factory belt start to move. You go to your position, you start to do your 5 o'clock, the belt stop. That is the entire idea of 9 to 5. Right? It's pretty easy, right? So last time, before this employment thinking come in, also is during our agricultural time, right? So we went through a few phases. When we talk about it, starting phase for hunter-gatherer phase, and then after the hunter-gatherer, they find that agriculture is a little bit more in control. Because the hunter gathering phase, is when we say out of control, is that you have to go and look for the animal, and when you gather the fruit, the fruit, sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not there. Sometimes also the fruits are not really that safe, right? So there's a lot of this risky variable around when there's hunter gatherer that time, right? But working hour is actually very short. Then you go to the industrial phase, or we call agricultural phase. Then we start to learn that we are able to actually control what we produce. So we can pick up certain fruits that we know that is delicious. We can pick up the seed and then we can plant the seed, right? So we can plant the seed to ensure that we get back the same fruits, right? So ensure you get the same fruit. So the agricultural starting now, right? So then everybody basically is a agriculturalist last time, right? So this is where now I tell people, at that point in time, everybody work for their father. You got a farm, you got a fishing, you got a carpentry, everybody work for themselves, right? So then go into industrialized state, they start to employ. So employment is actually pretty new. Probably about maybe 400 years. So it's very new in terms of our overall history. So our overall history, just take the Gregorian calendar, is 2024 years, right? So we have only like probably 10-15% of the time that we are in this modern world. Modernity is actually very new. Okay, our current modern lifestyle is super new, very junior, right? So if you take a look at it, then if you take 8 hours working a day, right? So then 24 day per month, right? So now I'm sure you guys work more than 8 hours. Confirm of that. I'm sure you work more than 24 days, right? So I'm just saying on general. So in general, then per month is it's a 200-hour game, right? It's a 200-hour game, so 1 month is 200 hours in exchange for your 4,000. So again, your job scope, whatever it is, actually don't care, right? So actually don't really care, but that is the exchange rate they buy over your 200 hours. Right, in this 2 hour, you are supposed to be productive lah. Okay, that's the entire idea, right? So do you know that last time in the agricultural time, the average working hour for a person is actually 140 right? You're actually more sucker in the employment than even last time. So is that working in the farm is very difficult, right? So because why 140 hours only? There is a very long period in the farming whereby you can't farm, which is winter. Right, winter basically you cannot do anything. Okay, right? So the actual farming time frame is actually very short. So you have a lot of time to do others. Whereas for employment, no. Employment is 24/7. Some of you even work 24/7. So this one, everybody understand, right? So employment. So most of people is basically underemployment job. At least 60-70% of the people, their only source of income is employment. Okay, their only source of income is basically in employment. So nothing wrong with being in employment, right? So as long as you are bringing food to the table, I think is honorable. All right, so nothing wrong with that. Then some of my friends will come and tell me, there is this investment. Every single time they come, there is this investment. Right? No need to talk anything open chiman right? They'll look at it, crap investment. Right, so that investment is very easy. Investment is a percentage return game. So again, no matter what investment you are, whatever you want to talk about, whether it's property, whether it's share, it's called a capital return game. Right, so in investment, there is only 2 components that you need to worry about. One is called capital. The other way is called rate of return. That's it. Investment very easy one. Please don't get too complicated with it. So if you want 400 bucks a month. Right, so the investment, let's say that it give you 1% per month, then you need 400,000 in the market. Easy, right? 400,000 in the market, 1% per month, then you get. By the way, 1% per month is very high return, because 1% a month is 12% a year per annum. How many investment give you 12% per annum? Our great EPF, my country, EPF is the retirement fund government thingy, right? So in Singapore it's CPF lah. Right, so they only give 5 to 6%. Right, so and then you say that I can get 12%. As too many people. Some even come tell me 30% a year, no problem. F you 30% a year. Right, 8% is a very generous return. Right, so most business will give 8%. Right, if you invest into most business, they will roughly promise you about 8%. But anyway, right, so there's a lot of mathematical calculation that you can do, as in how long before you return. But the biggest flaw in investment is you are risking 400,000. For this example, your 400,000 is actually at risk one. A lot of people don't know when they go into investment, right, your capital is completely at risk. So which means the 400,000 can go into zero overnight. Right, so for those of you who have been keeping updating right now, Bitcoin is on a free fall right now. So it's on 80,000 right now. A lot of people, it's like this, oh shit. what happened? I thought, Bitcoin is going to go up to the sky, right? So, yeah. All right, so it's 400,000, and if you still doesn't know the grievance of putting 400,000 just because you want to earn 4,000, right? So people see that, oh, I'm earning 4,000, and my friend very enthusiastic. Well, every month you see I get back this much, wow, and then I go and do a rough calculation. You are exposing this particular much, and I know he doesn't have that money, which means that somehow the money come from somewhere. So tell me when the 400,000 reaches zero, right? When it skydive. Or what in the investment world sometimes we call somebody did a rug pull, right? Obviously the investment fake one, scam investment. A lot of these are people very greedy, put in money, and then they rug pull mean that they shut down the entire thing, and then you cannot withdraw your money gone already. Happy or not? So 400,000, if you save, right, the what we call 1,000 a month. Let's say that you save 1,000 a month. I don't know where you get the 1,000 from. That is 400 month. That's 400 month, dear. Right, so there's 12 a month in a year, so that's about 30 years. If you can save 1,000 a month, which not many of you can actually save 1,000 a month, it will take you 30 years to recover this 400,000. Right, for your small little greed of trying to make 4,000 a month, if this one go to zero, your next 30 years is gone. This is the risk of investment, right? Too good to be true scam. Most by the way, period 9, you better be very careful with this. This is gonna be the investment sphere is gonna be the most exciting sphere in period 9. It is also the sphere whereby it is gonna be the most problematic. There is gonna be a lot of this business scam, right? So business scam is the IPO company after IPO already actually cannot run. You don't know, company after IPO already cannot run. Yes, that's actually the company actually does not really has a real revenue base. All the revenue was artificially created for you to look like it is good, right? So there's going to be a lot of this, right? So there's going to be a lot of investment scam. There's going to be a lot of gambling related, same thing, high risk high return, gambling related. So a lot of people is going to get into trouble. So I was telling them, if you really want, you can go and watch the Hong Kong show called Tai Si Doi. Right, once upon a time, I don't know what they call it, right? So it's called Tai Si Doi. Go and watch, right? So Jiang Xiu Chow, one of the a great show of the time, is talking about Hong Kong's period of share market collapsing, right? So a lot of people jump building, same thing. These 2 years it's gonna be mirroring the same. So it's like, do I ask you not to go into market or go into, up to you lah. You feel like 400,000 very easy to earn back, go ahead, right? No problem. All right, so if not, this is going to be the game. So now if people come over to here and say, oh, I want to do investment, you got capital or not? No capital, no investment, man. Pretty simple. Investment is very simple game, right? It's return on investment, right? So please just do that, right? So thank you, Crimson, for your coffee money, right? So the last one that I recommend is something that you can change the price as long as you can dictate the price. Which is basically called business. The only thing in business that you can dictate the price, which means that you can choose to do the business or not to do the business. So you can flung the price around, up to you, right? So you flung the price up, lesser customer, flung the price down, probably more customer, right? So this is just one of the what we call example, right? So let's say that you charge 4,000, right? So the deal is the deal is, right? So 1 hour per week, right? So 1 hour per week, that doesn't matter this 1 hour per week you do what lah. It can be cooking, coaching, it can be tuition, whatever. It can be personal training, it can be whatever, right? So you give them the package, for the 4,000 baht is basically a 28 week, 6 months lah, right? So 6 months, every week 1 session, so it's 28 session, right? So if you find 12 clients, then you can have 4,000 a month. Right? Simple maths only, simple maths only. So now tell me, if you want to start a business, 12 clients, is it very difficult for you to, a year is 1 year. 1 year you're supposed to find 12 clients, 1 client a month only. Is it difficult? If you tell me if that is very difficult, then there's no business that you can do. 12 is a very small number. right? So, and then, total per year is 336 hours. If you compare, so now if you compare this to employment 1 year require 2,000 hours. This one, 300 hours settled, same amount of money. Both of them similar. So you want to spend 300, you want to learn how to sell to 12 clients and only do 300 hours of work a year? Or do you want to go and get a job that required 2,300? Let's say this is called comparison, right? You lock all the reward money together. Every one of this is 4,000, right? So now this one also get 4,000. What is your exposure? What is your capital exposure? Next to none. Right, doing business, sometimes the good part of it is that there's next to none exposure. Now, depend on what business you do. If you're still doing very heavy, what we call very heavy physical business, then you got a bit of a problem, right? So like there is also too many people asking about F&B. I don't know why. I don't know why when people start business, right? F&B seems to be the number one that they want to ask. I want to open a cafe. That one, there is, Gen Z, Gen Y, right? So, and then the older one, maybe I want to open a noodle shop. Yeah, look at them, I look at them every single time, I look at them and then I ask them, do you know what you're getting yourself into, right? So the biggest problem of F&B is basically they got three costing that is not under their control, and you cannot use pricing to balance these three. One is rental. Right, so you need to rent a place, right? So, and when your business is doing good, the landlord increase the price. Almost every year, the landlord will increase the price. Singapore, so many of the food places is closing down. It's because of rental. Rental is one of the bigger reason. So rental just keep on going up. They cannot, because why? They landlord increase the rental, they cannot go and increase the price of the noodle to cover the rental. Doesn't work that way. Number two is labor, right? So very labor intensive is labor. Labor shortage is one thing. Doesn't matter. Salary of the labor, like Malaysia right now, it's like 1,700 minimum salary. So from 1,500 go to 1,700. That 200 can eat up all their margin. Their margin is very thin. Number three is the raw material. Right, the raw material. Today, today the fish price go up. Today fish price go up. You cannot be going there and tell you that today my noodle price goes up because the fish price goes up. And that's the problem. You don't have flexible in pricing, and then your costs keep on going. That's the biggest problem of F&B. If you're doing F&B, right, your father better be rich. Right, your dad better be rich, right? So because I've been seeing too many businesses already. A lot of the business, what are things happening inside, I know, right? So because I've seen a lot of it, right? So that's why when they say that I want to start this, right, give you a list of things for you to think about. First, can you cover? First, cannot cover, don't touch. Right? Cannot cover, you better just go for employment. Right? So because employment, only thing that they do, they burn your time, money. They burn your time, they burn your potential. Right? That's what employment do. Investment, you better have the capital, because when you start to burn the capital, it's really gonna freaking hurt. Right, that pin dive in investment is really hurting one. Right, so yeah, right. So until right now, people still doesn't know that when you go into investment, that all your money is exposed one. Exposed. As long as you're in the market, your money is in the market, is exposed. Exposed means that anytime can go up to smoke. You don't understand that. People think, oh no, we are protected. No one is protecting you. The first line that you sign in an investment agreement is that I understand the risk of the market. If things screw up, I will not blame you. You already, a lot of people shop in S&B a few years, right? Can't cope with the cost, labor, etc. Yeah, correct. That's basically one of it, right? So now there is always three choices in the market. Which one you want to do, right? Which one you want to do, right? So if you are talking about risk, investment actually happen to have the highest risk because you are risking all your money for that, 12-13% return. Anytime can go to zero. And there is a lot of things that has happened behind it, So even people say that, hey, Bitcoin is very safe one. It is very safe when it's inside your physical wallet. But when you go into the market to trade, you need to give the Bitcoin to the trading platform. Once you give the Bitcoin to the trading platform, you don't own the Bitcoin anymore. Oh no, that doesn't owned by me, man. No, it's owned by the platform. So anything happened to the platform, you are dead. And so many people got into, you know, this sort of scam is because the platform is the one that disappeared. Right? They don't understand. Right? They don't understand the platform can disappear. Bitcoin is still there, right? The platform will disappear. All right. So when the platform disappear, who you gonna chase after? Then you find out that, you know, it's not registered with Security Commission. Bank Negara doesn't know about it, and then, you know, you're gonna make report, you know, things like, oh, you know, we want justice, you know, we want to sue the company. The company is overseas. Want to sue your head, right? So now you take a lot. So that's why, you know, a lot of time, you know, you wanna ask yourself right now, you know, if I want to earn 4,000 a month, I got 3 choices. So you need to be able to live with the choice. So one choice is, you know, okay, 2,000 hours a month. If you are feeling like, you know, okay, you know, 2,000 hours is a good exchange, then employment should be the one, right? You should be doing employment. Don't think about it too much. So this is the game that you're gonna play. Go and play the game, then learn how to play the game of employment at the professional level. If you feel like, you know, okay, you know, I got like 400 over 1,000, you know, actually no people I know can take out 400,000 just like that. Right? No, right? So you want this sort of return, you know, 1% return per month. To find a business that give you this sort of return, also it's also ridiculous. Right, so, you know, we can basically go and do this, right? So the one that I usually tell people to do, which is rather pretty safe, is for us in Malaysia, is the EPF game. You put 1 million into because you can go from employment there to leverage the employer to pump money into your EPF account, which is the retirement work account, right? So if you reach 1 million, 6%, that's 60,000 a year. 60,000 a year, you know, pretty good spending. It's about 5,000 a month. Yeah, that one is pretty safe because why? EPF is all the company in the country compulsory need to pump money inside. So EPF cash flow got no problem. Right? Yeah, EPF can still make mistake in investment, you know, invest in dumb stuff, but because their cash flow is very difficult to cut off their cash flow. Money keep on going. Unless, you know, all the business in Malaysia suddenly, you know, stop employing people, stop paying salary, then cash flow may be an issue. Right? So because that one is a monopoly, you are forced to put in, right? So that's why EPF is pretty safe if you talk about, right? So EPF very difficult to chop up. And the EPF platform cannot suddenly disappear unless our country disappear as well. Okay, right? So EPF is a okay lah. Other than that, you know, any bank, even they say that, oh no, bank got this for Malaysia is PIDM, you know, it's an insurance. The insurance only cover 200,000 only. Hello, anything more than 200,000, you know, nah, doesn't work. Right? So then, you know, lastly is to start a business. Right? Start a business, you know, there's few things that you need to take a look. So today I'm gonna tell you what are the components in a business. Right? So in a business, right? And consider EPF then or fixed deposit. This one, the thing is that fixed deposit you cannot leverage. There's no leveraging in fixed deposit. EPF you can leverage your employer because EPF is a component of yourself and also your employer. So there's the employer portion that goes into EPF to help you grow. Fixed deposit don't have this thing, right? So don't have particularly this particular. Again, you know, fixed deposit again, it is protected up until a certain amount. So if you are gonna save 200,000, you know, which not gonna make any dent in anything. Right, so this fixed deposit right now is 200,000 for like 3% a year. Okay, so 3% a year, right? So that's like nothing, right? Your inflation is gonna, you know, eat up your fixed deposit money anyway. So I would say that EPF, which is the better game plan because of the employer portion. And by the way, employer can unlimited put money into EPF. Right, the employee portion, there is a limit. I don't know, it's 11% right now, but the employer can put in as much as possible. That's pathetic. 3 years, yes, that's pathetic. It's 3%. Okay, right, it's cool, right? So these 3 choices, right? So you can make the choice right now, right? You can basically make the choice. You know, if you one day decided that okay lah, right? Maybe I want to start a business now, right? So start a business is actually pretty low risk. So you can start business. There's a lot of time is zero costing, right? Zero costing business. A lot of this, zero costing business out there. Later we talk about it. Right, so let's go in first, right? So talk a little bit about leverage, right? So there's 7 levels of leverage that you can basically use, right? So this one apply to business, mostly apply to business, but if you are an individual, even at employment, you can actually use this. In employment, you can use this. So of course, first level is called no leverage. You get zero leverage. This is called fresh grad. Right, you got no leverage at all, just come in, you got nothing, right? So then the first level of leverage is basically education. Education means that you are smarter than other people. This is where you get university cert, you get a PhD, right? So in employment, your certification does bring you a little bit of money better than the other, which means that 2 person, if they are fighting for the same position, the guy that has this relevant certification, please, you don't go in say that oh, I'm a graduate in the I don't know what fashion whatever line, so please, there's a degree for like Taylor Swift, right? So they study Taylor Swift. It's under social science. If you have those type of degree, please don't. Right, so which means that if let's say that you are in an engineering position, you have the relevant engineering degree. It's those type of thing, right? So yes, it does goes higher a bit. It does go higher a bit, right? So this one, of course, you can in the parts chart you can read your direct resource. Direct resource controls your ability to use previous information or data, to help yourself. Right, so in the olden day, direct resource means that is actually verbally transmitting information from one party to another party. Right, during those times where people don't read, people don't write, we have the longest of time whereby people are illiterate. So again, right, it was only the past 300 years that literacy just came in. Literacy is a new invention. In the olden day, people hardly know how to read and write. Right, so the only way for you to learn is somebody come and tell you, and you need the resource start to remember, okay? Because someone is gonna pass by and then they're gonna blabber a lot of things to you. If you cannot remember, no use, right? So direct resource basically are people who has great memory. Okay, right, so you can take a look at that, right? So you can take a look at the person's direct resource to know whether. So people with direct resource usually first level leveraging education, leveraging information, pretty good, right? So then second level is basically sales. In business, no sales, bye. Okay, sales is usually very important, right? So later we will talk about the role of sales and your job scope for job scope, right? So this one talk about Wellstar. Right, so this one talk about Wellstar, so your Wellstar is stable, direct wealth, very stable. You are the very hardworking type. So now here again, sales is basically the production. So if you translate it back to the agricultural, the sales is basically your process of actually plowing the land, putting the seed. Education is know when to plant what. Right? People say that this particular season, planting this particular season, this particular soil, with this sort of water level, planting this particular crops is good. That is called education. The crops will not go plant itself. Right? Sales mean that you will go in and do the work already. That's direct wealth. Direct wealth is actually doing the work. So you guys know direct wealth is the energy that I counter. That's called direct wealth. Right? So then next you can leverage on media. Right? Leverage on media is basically called marketing, or the hoo-ha portion of it. Right, so now this one is again when you go through the what we call the fourth and also the fifth space, it is actually no more about you. So again, too many people think that skill set is very important. Skill set is only important until a certain level. Okay, after a certain level already, no one cares about your skill set, because skill set becomes something that is given. You're supposed to be. It's like quality of it's like you go buy food, right? The food is supposed to be safe to consume, is something that is very basic. Understand or not? Right? Right? You go to the shop, the fellow open shop, the food need to be able to eat. That's very normal, right? So same thing, or you need to be competent. competency is supposed to be something, right? So competency means that you know how to learn how to do this thing and you know how to do it properly. Right? So, you know, if you are somebody who is relying on your skills and say, oh, I'm a very skilled person. Okay, sorry, you're a very skilled person, you can only get to level 3. Right? Then level 4 means that other people know that you are skilled. You want to be better right now, other people need to know. So other people need to know, you need to know how to advertise. That is herding officer. Herding officer is know how to communicate to people. You need to have that hoo-ha, yada yada thing. Right? So it's important. If other people doesn't know, right? So is this one is I tell people is that you have a product that you want to sell, nobody knows that you're selling that product. A lot of people is committing this crime, especially a lot of freelancers. Right, a lot of freelancer, you know, even social media influencer, they are committing this crime. You know, I know a lot of social media influencer which is really very famous, but if you take a look at what they do, right, you don't know what they are selling. I don't know how to give you money. Right, you take a look, you know, all those, you know, that does, you know, wonderful video and right, so there's a lot of sponsor and right, you ask them what are they selling. No, don't have. Right. So they did not even tell people that, you know, if you need an actor for your media, come and look for me. They didn't even do that. Right? And then, you know, so, of course, you know, they don't know what you're selling. Right? Yeah, I know a lot of people, you know, want to transition over to become business, but too shy to tell people what they are doing. And so that's basically the power of media. Right? So you can measure your unshyness by looking at your herding officer. Right, so your herding office is there, you know, yeah, you know, it's workable. Then you are somebody who is not too difficult in terms of the entire idea of sharing with people stuff. At least telling people that I'm selling this, like, hey, hello, it's very important, you know, I'm selling this. Okay. Right. So then you go into system and tech. Right. So system and tech is where you need to make this run on its own. Right, because again, if you're relying on yourself, you only got 24 hours and one pair of hands. There's very limit what you can do. Now, once other people knows you are selling what and they start to come to buy from you, now you have a production issue. If you do not know how to systemize and, you know, use technology, cannot. Right, so this one is basically a job of direct officer. Right, so direct officer is the rules, regulation, and also obedience guide. Right, so you set a system, then, you know, things go in a smooth way. Right, so then after that, you know, once you know, okay with the system and everything, then you can start to look for people. Then you need to add people into the system. So now this one become manufacturing line again. Right, so the one of the greatest thing about manufacturing line is the ability to do mass production. So if you don't know, just tell you garment industry. Last time, the biggest problem is actually producing yarn, string. Right, so manual producing yarn is too slow. Right, too slow. Right, so then they invented, which is tech and system, they invented spinning jenny. Spinning jenny 8 times the yarn production. Right, so suddenly productivity become 8. Nothing has changed. The way that they do the yarn is exactly the same. Material is the same, whatever also is the same. It's just that the technology has made it that the spinning jenny can spin 8 yarn at the same time. So suddenly your productivity become times 8. Last time, one person can only produce 1 yarn at a certain amount of time. Right now, one person produce 8 at the same time. Right? So now, garment industry can go faster. So today, the yarn spinning machine can do 250 yarn at one go. Right? You can see, last time it's still one person operating. Right, the unit of operating is still one person. That is the power of system and tech. Right, system and technology. That's the power. So like right now, you know, with AI, you know, you can easily generate any sort of essay and text, ChatGPT, in a split second. You just have to give them a few idea that you have, you know, the fellow will generate everything for you already. So it makes the entire writing process. Last time probably take you 3-4 days to write the same thing. Right now, yeah, probably 30 minutes you settle. That's tech, no? Right, so that tech, it cut off things like editor, you know, all those kind of proofreader. You don't need all those people, right? So that's basically raw wealth. Raw wealth is the energy that's able to connect with people. Raw wealth. Then finally, only is capital. right? When you have the right people, you know, when you have the right knowledge, able to close sales, able to tell people that you got something to sell. Your system and tech is basically instead, and then you got the people then throwing money at the game for scaling purpose. That makes sense, right? So again, too many people scale too fast, right? You don't have the and the backbone, and you try to scale, then you die. Right, so these are, you know, the leveraging. So now you can basically check on yourself which level you're in. Right, most people probably stuck at education. These are capital is indirect wealth. To be able to obtain this capital is not your capital, it's to obtain somebody else's capital. You need indirect wealth. Indirect wealth is the energy that is able to detect opportunity. Okay, right. So if you indirect wealth, people usually very sensitive with opportunity, aka they know how to find lazy stuff. Right. So you need all of this. Okay, you basically need all of this. So you can measure your what we call your propensity in terms of, you know, your leveraging skill set, you know, based on this. Right. So if you see that, you know, oh, DO really very weak, then, you know, in terms of systemizing and, you know, tech leveraging, you're not there. Then I'm not there, which means that I cannot go find somebody else whose DO is functional and let the fella do that particular work. Right? Look for venture. This doesn't necessarily means that, you know, you look for venture. That's one way, right? So, you know, you're gonna get money, you know, look for your father and mother can already. Pharma loan is fine. If you have all this, right? So, you know, you have all these particular things already, you know, you can look for, you know, father, mother to get loan. Doesn't matter. It depends on how big only. Right? No 7K. No 7K. Okay, right? So these are the required. So you take a look at your parts chart, then you know you're stuck with them. Most people are stuck at, you know, level 1 education, right? They only know, you know, I want to get MBA, I'm get PhD, you know, then everybody will pay me more. No, right? You got MBA or PhD, you still need to know how to sell yourself, aka go interview. Yeah, raw wealth is basically raw wealth. The entire idea is to find somebody who's better than you. That's raw wealth. Raw wealth is the competition energy. Your idea is to find somebody who is in this particular area better than you and to pay this person to do the work. Understand or not? The competition is not that I want to whack this particular fellow. That's the wrong way to compete. The right way to compete is to acquire that particular person. So you can see right now a lot of businesses is like that, man. You know, I see that this particular business got potential, I buy you over. You guys know that there is just too many corporate merger nowadays that, you know, it causes the market to have no choice. Yeah, they corporate merger everything that got no choice. Job. Example for last time, there's 2 companies that basically is competing for worker, right? So what they do is that, you know, they will increase the salary to attract the worker from company A, and then company A will respond by increasing salary to attract worker from company B. So now what happens if these 2 companies merge? Should they still give you a good salary right now if these 2 companies merge? You got no way else to go. Your skill set can only work in this sort of company. Can see, right? So can see that, you know, that particular merger itself. Right? So that, right? So raw wealth is basically to identify your competitor, what are they doing better than you. So instead of fighting with them, that's the conventional way of thinking of raw wealth, is that how can I acquire this particular fellow into my team? So when we talk about people, is to get the right people into the team. Right? So when you know how to get the right people into your team, then when you have capital, I tell you, fly your business. Right? So this is basically the essence of, you know, leveraging yourself, right? So now again, even if you don't have all this, you know, you can basically do all this particular work. It's just that, again, if you don't have it, that become a little bit more challenging for you. That's it. That's the only difference only. If you got no hurting officer, media is a bit challenging for you. Does it mean cannot do? Can do. It's just that you're a bit slower. Right? People take 3 months to do, maybe you take 3 years to learn. But after 3 years, both of you will be at the same level. Right? Don't have first 4, have the last 2. Right? Right? So then you need to work on your first 4, you know, because if you have never worked on your education, sure have one, you know, everybody, you know, nowadays you have education. Right? You have education. Education is, again, the entire idea is that your capability to look at something and go and learn it. That's education. I'm not exactly talking about, you know, you need to have the certification. That piece of paper certification, no use one. Right? It's really you'll be able to pick up a book and actually learn. Right? To pick up a book and learn, or to listen to people to actually learn. It's your learn capability. Right? Everybody is born to don't know anything one. We got people born come in, you know, preloaded with all the thing. No, everything is acquired. So you just acquire, right? So once you acquire already, the next thing is to tell people that, you know, I have this. Be able for you to do the skill, right? To able to you to practice it, right? So once you know how to practice it, then is to tell people that you have this particular skill. Then after that is to know how to systemize the entire thing, you know, then to get somebody else to do it. Done. Right? Don't have category. Don't have. No IR7KEG. Don't have. Useless. Right? So come, let's take a look at it, right? So if you're gonna start a business, you know, one thing that you need to bother is what you're gonna sell. You're gonna sell, you know, is it product, services? Actually, I don't really care. Right? Fulfillment is make that, you know, you just need to, you know, get something out to sell to people, whether it's product and services. Don't care. You know, too many people, oh no, I'm a service provider, I'm a product provider. Doesn't matter, it's cost stuff. Right? You want to put some stuff into somebody so that they pay you, right? So if you are in the stuff compartment, right? So, you know, you can call it the operation, you know, so I just use the name fulfillment, right? So again, this is terminology, right? So the three area that you need to take care of, one is assembly. Assembly means put things together. Then, you know, there's the cost and material, you know, the stuff, and then the skill and tech. These three you need to have. Okay, as a producer, the skill is there. So if you're buying a product, you're buying these three things. Right? If you're buying a product, right? So if you are not manufacturing, so if you are the manufacturer of the product, these are the things that you need to worry about. You need to worry about the cost, the material, right? So what material to use, what are the costing, you know, associated with the material, right? So all these kind of things, you need to worry about it. You need to know. Okay, right? So then, you know, the skill and also the tech that is required to basically produce this thing and actually go and produce it as assembly. Right, so in a big conglomerate, all these three have their own department, right? So like cost and material, usually you call it procurement. Right? Skill and tech usually is training development. Right? So the assembly side, you know, usually is the floor staff, or you call operation. Okay, right? So but if it's in a smaller scale, it's all going to be you. Right? You need to know where to get the material, right? So you need to know how to assemble it. You need to know how to scale up your skill and tech. So this you have to know as a package, as a fulfillment person. So if as a production person, you need to have these three skill sets. So right now, question is that, do you want to produce a product? You have to ask yourself, right? So now typical manufacturer is basically this model, right? This is what they do, right? So they have to, you know, produce the product itself. So this one can be a bit higher capital, depend on what you produce. So if you produce services, then like, you know, you provide a consultancy service, right? So consultancy, or, you know, what you call your counseling service, you know, counseling, you know, so you're a counselor. Right? So you're a counselor, you sit around, you know, you listen to people, then, you know, your cost and material could be zero. Just say, you know, your counselor cost material, maybe your cost is the you know, counseling room. You need to have a rental of a counseling room. That can be your house. Right? So assembly means that you need to sit down and listen to the fella, right? So your highest requirement is actually your skill and tech. So you need to be updated with the most current technique basically being used, right? So you need to go and, you know, study all that, you know, it's basically skill and tech, right? So it also increasing your experience, right? Your experience add to your skill set, right? So last time, you know, you have never talked to people who lost their labubu, right? So suddenly a lot of people lost their labubu, come and talk to you, you know, about how they lost their labubu and their feeling after losing their labubu. So that added into your skill set in terms of handling labubu lah. Understand? Right? So you need to basically do this. You need to understand, you know, whether this is, you know, something that you're going to do. Like, for example, if let's say you're a gym personal trainer, right? So the cost and material side, now depending if the gym belong to you or you are using a external gym, right? So if you're an external gym, then you got a costing in terms of cost and material is the gym membership. All right, so assembly mean that, you know, the training, right? So training that you provide for them, right? So skill and tech, again, you know, it's the gym equipment. Some equipment are really very good, some equipment really very bad. And also, again, your personal trainer training costs, right? So you need to, again, need to upgrade your skill set. You know, it doesn't matter whether it's swimming, right? So swimming, then your course material become your swimming pool. Right, if the swimming pool is not yours, then, you know, you need to pay a fee for the swimming. Or else you cannot teach swimming, we are low. You teach dry land swimming, man, right? So all this is basically on the fulfillment side of stuff, right? So do you want to produce the stuff, right? So like recently, you know, Catherine, right? So, you know, we do have a FSA, you know, run by Catherine, right? So she decided to, you know, buy some gift and send, you know. Then only she discovered that the postage is more expensive than the product. Right, so now this is cost and material, right? This is cost and material to her. Right, so right now she only start to know that, wow, handling all this, you know, I have to do packing, you know, I have to post it out, and then you find out that the postage is actually more expensive than the product itself. So how? Right, so now all these things you don't go and do, you don't know, right? So the assembly part is that, you know, she need to do the packing, right? She become the packing slave. Then the skill and tech, you know, how much packing paper you need to do, how to pack the thing, you know, so that it doesn't damage, you know, all those kind of things called skill and tech. Right, so now she learned one side of the fulfillment. Right, so do you want to be a manufacturer? Ask yourself, you know, so now you're gonna go move into business, you need to ask yourself this. If not, then you just buy from someone else. Right, makes sense, So if you don't want to, you know, bother about this, you know, you use money to solve the problem. So you buy from someone else. Okay, right? So you buy the entire thing from someone else, right? Right. So greetings from everyone from Florida. How are you doing? You know, Joseph. Right, so next is sales, right? So sales is basically, you know, to get revenue, right? So sales only got 3 jobs: attract, convert, and also maintain. That's the 3 jobs of a salesperson. So attract traditionally is basically call your marketing team. Convert is basically your sales, you know, so-called your sales team, right? So, and maintenance is your customer service, right? So in a corporate environment, this is the 3, right? So in a personal, now a lot of people they do not know how to do attraction. They do not know how to do maintenance, and they want to call themselves salesperson. No, you are what we call a counter staff. Right? If you do not know how to do attraction, do not know how to do maintenance, you're called a counter staff. Right? So, or, you know, in the sales world, it's called an order taker. You know, somebody who sit in the counter and only know how to respond when the other party come to you. So now a lot of people is like that. They think that, oh, I'm doing sales, but in actual sense, they are just a order taker, right? FSA Catherine organized, right, will be in the afternoon for Malaysia. Should be afternoon, if I think it's 3 o'clock, 3 or maybe 4 o'clock if I'm not wrong. Right, so I also need to check because this is in January, so I didn't look at it, and also, right? So the attraction part of it is lead generation. Lead generation means that to find a warm body to talk to. So you can see conversion, you know, when I say it's a counter staff, it's like those people who run the shop floor, right? So we run the shop floor, the fella hide inside the shop. Unless the customer walk into the shop, then only they know how to work. If the customer don't walk into the shop, right, they don't know how to go out of the shop to go and find warm body. They don't have that capability, right? So they think that doing sales is, you know, somebody, you know, so coming to them. Maintenance is after the sales already, you know. So a lot of salesmen also, you know, they don't do maintenance. After getting the sales, you know, then they get a commission already, right? They completely just run away, and, you know, it's become irresponsible. So that's why a lot of people don't really like salesmen. Right? A proper sales handle all these 3. Right? A proper sales handle all these 3. Right, so and a good example of a proper sales is actually everything that has to do with those people doing agency work. Agency work means the MLM, your insurance salesman, your mutual fund salesman, you know, your fund, your will, you know, yeah, right. So, you know, that, so they find their leads, they find their own leads, then they do their own closing, and also they do the servicing. So at least for insurance, is at least for the first 4 years they will service you, because after that they don't get commission anymore, right? So they get commission for the first 4 or maybe 5 years, right? So then they will service you, right? So they will service you mean that, you know, they will take care of you. But after that, you know, when they don't get commission out of it, you know, yeah, I know they only get 3-4 years only out of it. Right, so that's why every 3-4 years they will ask you to top up lah. You know, they will, you know, introduce new product to you lah. Because what, if you don't buy from them, then, you know, they don't get anything for servicing you. Then they will stop servicing you. Very, very practical, right? Very super practical itself, right? So maintenance also is the one that basically take care of return sales. Whether return sales or referral, these are all, you know, maintenance kind of stuff. So please, so if you only know how to do counter work, right? Only know how to do that, please don't call yourself a salesman. You know, just call yourself that I'm an order taker. Right? I'm an order taker. I only know how to stand here, you know, and then, you know, I don't know how to go and find customer. I need somebody to feed me customer. Right? Now, most salesmen in a company is this type. You know, they don't know how to do lead generation. Right? They don't know how to do lead generation. Okay, they just sit there, you know, oh, company need to give me leads. Company didn't give me leads, leh. I don't know, leh. So, you know, I got nobody to talk to because I don't have leads. Don't have leads, don't know how to go out and find. Yeah, you know, it's company responsibility to give you leads. You know, in a big organization, you can do that, you know. So again, if it's in your own organization, you have to be able to handle all of this. How to attract customer, you know, how to do the closing, you know, how to maintain the relationship. Your job. So you want to be a competent salesman, this, right? You don't need to know how to produce stuff for salesman, right? So then the last component is basically for administration. Administration is your law, your compliance, your finance account, your HR, your admin. These type of people don't sell, they also don't produce. But they keep everything in check, right? Unfortunately, this one is important. If your business is of a certain size, it becomes more and more important. The bigger the size of your company, the more important it is, right? Because this entire thing keeps the government away from you. I would say roughly, if your business is making 100,000 or more for Malaysia, this becomes very relevant. Because your business is making 100,000 and more, this is where government will start to come after you. If you're making 100,000 and less, government don't bother about you. Okay? Yeah, you're invisible if you're earning 100,000. The cost of coming after you doesn't justify the return that they're gonna get. Right? So yeah, no. So for a typical Malaysian who is earning less than 100,000, their annual tax is just about 4,000. There's no point chasing after you for 4,000 baht, right? So no, yeah. So, you know, above 100,000 is a different ball game, right? So, you know, is there any company who is good at this and then, you know, does not produce, does not sell one? You know, most of your Airbnb your Grab your Uber, right? So this sort of companies basically, you know, they are just managing the compliance side of it. Right, so you look at Airbnb. Do they own any of the building? No, they don't own any. But they don't own any production. The production is basically done by the house owner. Does Airbnb does any of the marketing? Also, does not do much of the marketing itself. You know, they're not a marketing arm, right? They are not a marketing arm itself, right? So they basically, you know, run this sort of stuff, right? So your typical insurance agent is just the sales part of it, right? So they don't own the law compliance part. The insurance company will take care of that. They also don't own the product. The insurance company will take care of that. So the insurance company basically has outsourced the sales component to them, right? So if you are a what we call your online doing online selling product online, you know, call what FBA is called what already? Fulfillment by Amazon, FBA, you know, fulfillment by Amazon. So you are only doing the advertising part, you know, or this called affiliate marketing. You're only doing the marketing part of it. Product doesn't belong to you, and against, you know, the management of things doesn't belong to you, right? So sadly, unless actually there are tax and capital gain in Malaysia, there's a lot of way to worm away, but anyway, so now this is the three component, right? So this is the three component of basically a business. So if you want to run a business, you know, take a look at these three components. The final component, the law compliance side, you know, again, not too important if your business is of a certain size, right? So, you know, if let's say that, you know, you just want to earn 4,000 a month, then that one basically is not important. but the sales and the fulfillment component is going to be very important, right? So the sales, and then you have no control over the fulfillment component, then you have an issue of selling things to people, then your fulfillment counterpart is not able to, right? This is a lot of time is the you want to say construction or the interior design, 装修 have this problem. You got people coming over, tells you, we can do this, da. When actual come and do the renovation that time, then you see that there is a lot of things that is not being included. It's because the salesman does not know fulfillment. Yeah, the salesman come over there, oh, this one can, oh, can, everything can. But when come that time and they take a look, this one is very typical of those people who buy furniture from China. Right? So yeah, furniture, you can actually buy everything from China. So when buy everything from China, when installation that time, then only you find out that there is a huge gap. The angle of your wall, right? So your wall wasn't done very correctly. The angle of your wall basically doesn't fit the furniture itself. So you install the furniture on this particular wall, right? It doesn't fit. Now this is not the fault of the installer. Just tell you first, right? It's not the fault of the installer. It's the fault of the manufacturer for not taking it. So if you are talking to a renovation fellow who has their own factory, and they come and does all the wall measurement, including this particular angle, so they will manufacture the furniture in accordance to your wall angle and everything. So when you put it that time, installation that time, you put it in there, straight away can install. Right, so all of this is basically talking about how well you control. So you can take a look at your business. And when I tell people you need to do your fundamental analysis before you go into business, is to understand all this, which part of it that actually I can do. Because as an employee, you can only do one part. Last time you're only doing one part. And let's say that you're the compliance officer in the what you call your organization. So the compliance side, you probably know a lot, but the rest of it, shit. And then you try, I'm gonna open a compliance company. Right, I'm gonna offer compliance consultancy. Once you say that you want to offer compliance consultancy, then you need to know fulfillment, you need to know sales, you need to know finance, account, HR, admin, you need to know all these things. So you need to now to start ask yourself, where you are in terms of all this stuff. On, right? Not too difficult, right? So once you know where you are and what are the things that you want to acquire, don't want to acquire, then you can plug in people, right? You can basically plug in people, and you start to know the value of that particular person, right? Whether the fellow, so you have a salesman whose only job is to open form. You won't keep this salesman for long. Right? If this particular salesman doesn't know how to go out and hunt for food, no, because once you know how to do lead generation, right, you don't need this salesman. You can train another fella, to do the closing. Okay, right? So like today, you just put a link there. Right? Then that salesman no job already. I just put a link there. Why do I need you to go and talk to the customer? Understand, right? So same thing. So it's like skill and tech. So if I got AI, then I can make the entire process much more easier, right? So I can find China got lower costing, with the same what we call quality. By the way, right? So I have done a bit of a searching, between China and Malaysia. So it's between Shopee and also Taobao lah, right? Taobao price and Shopee price is usually the same one, but Taobao price is in Chinese yuan. Right, so if you buy something from Shopee, which is 100 baht, you can buy it Taobao 100 yen, so which is 50% discount. Right, then you buy from Taobao lah, right? Including the postage also is still cheaper, right? Because in Malaysia they still charge you postage, right? So recently there is a China workshop just came in, China car workshop just came in, right? So come in with apps. with everything. The rest of the workshop, I tell you, they're gonna die. Right? No more you can try to overcharge people, all this kind of thing, and they take parts from China straight away. Right? So they got China supply chain. How are you gonna fight with them? Right? They give you transparency, they give you speed. Right? So they can guarantee you parts, right? So not like you bring a car there, and then say that, oh, this part my place don't have, you need to wait 3 months for the part to come. Right? China don't have the order from China, because most of the part is manufactured from China anyway. Right? Yeah, so China is like the grandfather of OEM there. So how are you gonna fight? Right, so this is a small business model for you, which cover almost all the job, right? So your job is just to sit down there, I'm doing this right now. How can I start to understand the rest? That is your fundamental groundwork that you need to do. Right? Hello, Guanbun. Hello, Guanbun GC1. Right? You guys need to go and change your right handle. All right, so this is a small sharing for you all, right? So a little bit of a knowledge for you, right? So if you're reading Chiman, then you know some of the targeting point of job is open door, investment is rest door, business is lifetime. So at least right? So in terms of leveraging yourself, you have all the different level of leveraging and what are the parts element that basically will assist you in doing that portion faster. Right? So, and you also know that leave you with the business, you want to call model also can. Right? And all their responsibility tasks for you, right? So yeah, you can do that. Right? So and please go start a business if you want to, right? Or else your game is going to be 200 hour X amount, or you can throw in a certain amount of capital and risk everything for X amount, or you can start a business, right? So start a business, the good thing is that a lot of things can be under your control. Definitely pricing is under your control, right? So you can choose what price you want to do. All right, so it's like Jimmy Aoyang, 1 hour 1.5 million. Damn. Okay, right? So it's doing great. Okay, that's it, guys. Bye.